So, hello, fellow Earthlings. This is Earthling 6455463728. And I'm talking today about Joe Rogan's guest, Peter Weinstein. Weinstein? I have to admit, I clicked on the episode because I wanted to know if Harvey Weinstein had a son. I wanted to talk about him. And then when I clicked on it, I realized, whoa, I know this guy. He is a guy who is somewhat controversial. He had a theory that these other people, Sean Carroll among other people, were saying, hey, maybe not take this guy too seriously. Anyway, the beginning of the podcast. The guy needs to take a chill pill. He seems to want somebody to take the reins of the U.S. and be militant, like strong dictatorship even. He seems to think that things are going really awfully wrong and it's the Democrats' fault mainly. It's kind of funny how, to me anyway, that some people who are supposed to be Democrat, I think he's Democrat, and Joe Rogan, I think he's Democrat, seem to dislike the Democrats so much. Is it like people who don't like their family or their moms or their dads that much? Maybe it's like that. Maybe it's something like that. Anyway, I understand that the economy is probably going to be trashed because of this, but some of the things that he was espousing, like, it's people are being too concerned about racism when we have something like this going on. And this guy is Jewish. Are you kidding me, Jewish guy? You are talking about people are being too overly concerned about racism, and this is coming from a Jewish person in times of important times like these. Like, wow, you are a little bit, you need to take it easy. And I think that this is with respect to the Chinese, his feeling, and the Russians and whoever else. I think it was kind of really crazy. To me, it's like, if you have a win-win situation, what I was thinking was that this guy is really smart. As he was saying at the end of the podcast, he's a mathematician. I'm sure he is very well known. I think he has his own podcast that Joe Rogan listens to. But at the same time, I'm looking at somebody who knows a lot about so many different things, and yet seems to so easily want to give up his freedom for a little safety in times like these because it might wreck the economy. And he wants to, in my opinion, go overboard and not worry about prejudice and racism when it comes to a disease that is affecting everybody in the world. I think that if the other side were pushing that narrative as hard as he seems to be pushing this narrative, he would not like it, and maybe he might push back just as hard, but honestly, he seemed to be talking a little bit crazy. And given some of the people that, I don't know. I really don't know. Anyway, it was funny to see that with respect to Bernie Sanders and the kerfuffle that was created by Joe Rogan saying that he would vote for Bernie Sanders, that Joe Rogan said, everybody wanted to besmirch Bernie Sanders because of a guy, namely himself, who says effed up things trying to be funny. So does he really realize now in this moment that, yeah, you can look pretty bad and things are not just jokes? Is it? So at least it seems like at this moment, when it, because for those who don't know, after Joe Rogan said that he would vote for Bernie, there was a group of people who wanted Bernie Sanders to denounce his endorsement, Joe Rogan's endorsement, because of other things, controversial things that Joe Rogan had said, opinions that he held. So at that precise instant, and apparently Joe Rogan, right after somebody on his show asked him who he was going to vote for, and he said it, he got off and he spoke to Peter Weinstein. And it's funny because at that moment he's like, I might bring down the guy that I want, the guy that I like, because of the things that I say for a laugh. So now you understand that what you say has consequences. You know, even if it's a joke, words have consequences. And, well, that was an interesting part of the broadcast. Something that was also interesting was towards the end of the broadcast, Mr. Weinstein was bringing up the idea that for the first time in however many decades, his jab or his venture into trying to have a unified theory between quantum mechanics and relativity, that this was something that he had been working on for some period of time, and he started to try, Joe Rogan said, hey, try to break this down in a layman's terms for me. And just the way that he was talking, it's hard to break things down into layman's terms. It's like asking somebody to split an atom. It's all easy enough to say, could you do this? But you are talking about relativity and quantum mechanics. So it's, to me, I was kind of surprised, pleasantly so, that Joe Rogan seemed to be able to grab on to a couple ideas here and there, to be able to ask, somewhat intelligent questions about what Mr. Weinstein was saying. One of the things, another thing that was interesting was that Mr. Weinstein was like, hey, we need to get off of the planet. And Joe Rogan was like, why? People talk about getting off of Earth and going to Mars. Mars sucks. Why not just make here good? And Mr. Weinstein was like, Peter was like, yeah, but I don't think that we don't have the wisdom, we don't have the, mental capacity or so on, the good mental capacity to be able to, this is our one shot. And if we mess it up, I guess that's what he was trying to say. If we mess it up, it all ends here. So we need a backup. And hopefully his unified or his attempts at finding the source code of the universe is one of the words that was thrown around in the podcast. If we can find the source code of the universe, maybe we can rewrite the code so that we would be able to go to distant solar systems with planets that we can colonize. So that was interesting. But at the same time, you often hear about this stuff, about how bad mankind is at what we've been doing, and I don't think it's mankind. I think it's life, because we are life. We oftentimes we look at ourselves and we say, oh, we are so great, and then other times we're like, oh, we are so horrible. But I think every living creature uses the resources that it has to breed as much as it can. So if we were rabbits, non-thinking rabbits, or if we were anything else, we would be doing the same thing, because living things, they consume resources and reproduce. That's our mandate. So to expect anything else of us, besides consuming resources, whatever we can find, and making more of us and increasing our population and spreading our waste all over the place, is us thinking that we're so special. But I kind of lean closer to Joe Rogan and what Neil deGrasse Tyson was saying, in that it is so hard, these things that we want to do in terms of colonizing another planet, and according to Peter, going to another solar system altogether, are so difficult. We can't even figure out fusion yet, and we are already planning that far ahead. to, all the things that we're doing, they're not going to. Well, one thing that popped up in that he was saying is that given enough time, there will be a nuclear war. And that is true. It's a fact. As long as there are nuclear arms, at some point, people are going to end up using them too much. It is just a matter of time. Anything with even the smallest possibility, given enough time, will eventually happen. So it is true that that's something that we're probably not going to escape from as long as we have nuclear weapons. There's going to be that threat. And well, they talked about a couple of interesting things. They mentioned a little bit of fighting with respect to wrestling and the fact that there's supposedly the head of WWE had gone to a sporting body that wanted to tax his organization and said, listen, all of this stuff is just fake. So we're not really a sporting company or a sporting franchise, so you can't tax us. You don't have any jurisdiction over us. And I thought that was interesting. And the idea was that even though he said that, wrestling fans didn't care. And, they don't care, even though they know that whoever's going to win has been predicted in advance. And he said something again that was a little bit funny but interesting, because it's true. That it may be that the outcome is known at the beginning, but he didn't think that wrestling was fake. And you're saying, but wait a minute, he just said that wrestling is fake. Yeah, the outcome is not ever in doubt, but the actual wrestling, people get hurt. People have to go and get surgeries. People die. Wrestlers have very short and painful lives in many instances. So that part of it, he's right, is not fake. A lot of these injuries, and just, when I think it was, what's the name of this guy? With John Oliver, he did a piece on wrestling, and it was really so sad to hear that wrestlers, they don't have anything to fall back on in many instances. They don't have, as far as I know, and don't quote me on this, but from what I saw, they don't have a pension. They're not unionized. So basically, it's whatever Mr. McMahon says goes. And it ends up that a lot of the people that you might see on TV, they don't get properly taken care of in their later years and after they have finished wrestling. So that was really awful to hear, and it just reminded me when I heard what Peter spoke about. But anyway, that's about it. So wish me luck, guys. You can like or unlike. You can comment about it. Or you can share and or subscribe. Peace.